GM Coin Bureau fam, and welcome to another installment of Q&A. Now we've got a really compact, alpha-packed episode for you today, and that's because, as you can see, I'm joined by two very special guests. To my left corner, we've got Dan the man, the head of Coin Bureau Research, the gigabrain that moves at 100 miles an hour. And then to my right corner, we have got the editor-in-chief of CoinBureau.com, Mr. Richard Gere. Taylor McCracken himself. Gentlemen, how you doing? And welcome to Q&A, man.
Yeah, doing well. Yeah, thanks, man.
Cool,
it's always great coming to Dubai, so good times.
Even under these
Except for when it's underwater.
Yeah. Well, we manage. We're all here. And we're going to be doing a Q&A, and it's going to be very, very action-packed, as I said. And we're going to dive right in with the first question. And I'll start with Taylor, and then Dan will answer, and then I'll also give my view as well. And this is from Ayush Sankla. And he's asking, Solana, this year, all-time high, reach or not?
Oh, it's a good question. I'm already going to break the rules, and I'm not going to put a year time frame on it, but I'll give kind of my idea on sort of a price time frame and how it'll relate to Bitcoin. So everybody's watching Bitcoin this year. Is it going to break 100K, isn't it? So I think what I'm watching for a lot of altcoins to pump is I'm waiting for Bitcoin to break 100K, get into no man's land. Who knows where it's going to go from there, but as soon as Bitcoin starts to stall, people are going to get bored and go rushing into altcoins real quick. So I think, to answer your question, I think Solana will hit an all-time high shortly after Bitcoin stalls on its all-time high.
Cool. So you think it's going to basically be when the altcoin rotation happens, which is generally the altcoin season, people will move out of Bitcoin and they're going to try and go into Solana?
As soon as Bitcoin gets boring, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So we were going through these questions, of course, before we started, and I was thinking, my initial thought was yes, but then I realized I think I'll make it conditional. So on the condition that, especially around stablecoin legislation regulation, because of course Solana seems to be very popular with these payment companies, Visa, whatever, which is a little bit funny given the kind of outage congestion or what have you. But all that aside, it's Solana, especially Anatoly, has made it clear payments is something they're really interested in, and all that they're missing, Anatoly has said this verbatim, is we're just waiting for good regulation to go through so that we can actually do more of this. And some of you guys may have heard that recently, I think a new stablecoin bill was tabled. It sounds like there's progress even in the Senate, the Sherrod Brown, who's notoriously anti-crypto. Apparently, he's also open to approving it if it lands on his, in his corner or whatever. So if that happens, I think that Solana would hit an all-time high, because I think the people who hold Sol, who are really up, around the team, and they'll understand the significance of that, and that there's going to be a huge push for payments. And even just on the DePIN thing, I think Solana could do well. It seems that they're positioning themselves for that.
I like how that was a yes or no question, and we both just waffled for ages.
I guess, okay, so here's the question, Dan. So the question was more related to this year, right?
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, so you saying it's contingent on the stablecoin thing?
Yeah. If the stablecoin bill is passed, I would say 100%. Otherwise, I would say I think it will hit an all-time high, towards the end of the year. But I wouldn't say I'm as certain of that as if there was a stablecoin bill.
Dude, with the current Senate and House and the state of US politics, I think the chances of any sort of positive crypto regulations going through.
Yeah, it's probably pretty low.
Yeah, I think, so we've obviously done recently, we did a recent Solana video 2 to 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
I think that we generally here at Coin Bureau are kind of quite bullish on Solana. Some people holding it. Do you hold in your portfolio?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
So see, basically, we at Coin Bureau are kind of bullish on it. Some, not everyone's going to hold it. I don't hold it, unfortunately. I wish I did. I've recently, I've been in ETH Maxi for quite some time, and more recently, at least about 2 to 3 months ago, I've realized actually, the UX of the Solana is amazing. And in terms of our recent reviews and stuff, if you look at, so if we follow in ETH in terms of price actions, if you follow in ETH from previous cycles, right? ETH reached a market cap of 500 billion.
550, something like that.
In the previous cycle, right? And if you have one cycle behind with Solana in this cycle, this is one of our videos that we did. It's if you think about 446 million in terms of circulating supply on Solana, that could estimate a price in the top of $1,100.
Yeah, something like that.
So I think in terms of this year, I think it's definitely likely. Yeah. Because I think that there's just so much excitement in terms of the Solana ecosystem right now.
Yeah.
And obviously they've got challenges, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So the outages are an issue, right? But there's an upgrade. We're supposed to be in this April. There's an upgrade to how they drop fees, right? The priority transactions.
I don't know if it was the priority, but I know that on Monday they were supposed to put some kind of fix in. I think that was, but that might have already been last week. But what's interesting is I'm still seeing headlines about, like, for me, I haven't had any issues with Solana over the last week or so, but I'm still seeing like headlines like, oh, like they're promising like still a solution, which sounds like, you know, something is still coming. So maybe that was something else. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So I remember in our meme coins video over the weekend, the Solana meme coins video, and one of the screenshots was obviously Phantom like trying to do a trade on a meme coin, and he had like said,
swap failed.
Yeah, not swap failed. It said like due to congestion issues. Should we try? Well, we can't really get a screenshot. Should we blur it out? But look, I mean, no, the credit. I mean, I think Solana, it's a really exciting project. I think that they're doing big things. Fire Dance is coming, obviously. You know, so contrary to some popular opinion out there, our video was a hit piece. It wasn't at all. I think it was generally positive. Obviously, the challenges for Solana, but I think it could definitely hit an all-time high this year. But there are other factors at play, of course. What happens with the macro? Is it going to be the meme coin frenzy that drives it? Is it going to be other building on Solana? But I think that potentially this year. So the next question is from Augustin Hosera. Now he's a real OG. I mention him all the time. He always asks like at least 3 or 4 questions. So I'll give a shout out. So Augustin is asking, how the hell did Toncoin sneaked up to the top 10 in market cap? It's not even part of any hot narrative. Yeah, I mean, that is crazy how Toncoin just like randomly popped up there, you know, surpassing Cardano, now Dogecoin as well.
Yeah, it exploded onto the scene. And I think Toncoin's, I don't know if you could call it a narrative, but Toncoin has all the crypto degens on it. So I think everybody who dabbles in crypto, if they enjoy the meme coin casino, it doesn't matter what you're doing in crypto, you've probably got a Telegram account and you're probably part of multiple different trading groups, crypto groups, you name it. So, I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm surprised at how quick it hit the top 10 for sure. But I'm not surprised that it's up there just because that's where crypto kind of lives, that and Twitter, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say it's interesting. So last night we were having a dinner and we bumped into a couple like VC dudes, of course, like it's Dubai, during a crypto conference. Every other person's a VC, even the taxi drivers.
Either they're traders on they're traders on their screen in the middle, or they're VCs, or they're telling you about the crypto project they're launching. You know?
It's a taxi cab Inu. Anyway, but yeah, in all seriousness, I think, you know, when you're looking at like Toncoin, especially for some of these cryptos, and you're thinking like why is it pumping? It was actually very fascinating. The guy was kind of explaining to us that within like the Russian community, within like you know, basically more often than not, when you see a crypto that's pumping, it's typically, and you just can't find an explanation. Chances are it's because it's happening in somewhere, some region, that's something that's not in your language. And I think South Korea is a great example of this, 100%. because you'll see like I don't know, like a Bitcoin Cash or something, or Bitcoin SV is like going through the moon, and you're like, why are they buying? Who is buying? And then if you actually go, and this is something you guys can do, if you actually go and you search or you pull up a crypto on CoinMarketCap or whatever, and you adjust it so you can see by trading volume. What's kind of weird is like CoinMarketCap and even CoinGecko, I don't know, for some reason, I don't want to say like they downrank like the South Korean exchanges, but like when you rank it by trading volume, you'll actually see that, wait a minute, like 90% of the trading volume for this, you know, Bitcoin SV or whatever is coming from BitThumb or one of these like South Korean exchanges. Like that's why it's pumping. And like, what is the exact narrative on that end? Like I mean, unless you speak Korean, you probably don't know. But I guess in Toncoin's case, it seems to be, I think, especially with like Telegram doing the IPO, like, you know, to us, maybe it's like, oh, like whatever. But when you understand that Telegram has a very big, of course, like Russian community, even like you could say like, quote unquote, like a global South type of thing. Like there's basically a huge, actually an enormous cohort of people that are like actually like obsessed with Telegram, like be it in Russia and like Russia. It's not just Russia, but also Russian speaking countries. And if you're talking about Russian speaking, you're talking like hundreds of millions of people. This is not like a small, you know, thing. But anyway, so that would be my explanation.
Did you guys manage to catch the interview with Tucker Carlson and Pavel Durov? No. You know that they've got something like, they've only got 30 full-time devs.
Really?
30. And he's the singular product manager.
I'll actually give a quick shout out. One of my friends from previous crypto startup I worked at, Alexander, he just started working at Toncoin as a developer.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's actually
congratulations.
If you guys haven't, if you haven't seen this interview, I'd recommend you definitely watch it. It's really fascinating. Like Telegram, with Telegram and Tether, I think they are the two companies. Although to be honest, like Telegram itself is not, you know, profitable yet. It's heading to profitability.
Yeah.
Tether, for instance, in terms of profitability per, you know, employee, it's more so than it's like 50 times out of Goldman Sachs. You know, it's like making the profit of Goldman Sachs with, I don't know, 100 employees, where Goldman Sachs is 30,000 or something. But anyways, in regards to Telegram, so they've got, you know, 900 million users and about 70 cents, you know, in terms of cost per user. So they're going towards profitability. yes, the Toncoin could be a beta play for the IPO. The question is just like around, do you think, and this is a more legal question, do you think that Telegram and Ton, who are sued by the SEC, will be able to easily get an S1 registration in the US to file for an IPO?
Well, I mean, it would be a little contradictory if they did. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out, I guess.
Exactly.
But, I mean, that's a similar play with like the SEC going after, wow, words are tough, sorry guys, Ethereum at the moment as well, right? So the SEC is kind of going after Ethereum, and it's like, why after all this time? Why are you guys just deciding to do this now? Like, so yeah, I'm interested to see how that's going to play out with Toncoin as well.
If in Telegram's case, if I'm completely honest, I'm less so worried. Like, are they registering? They want to IPO in the US?
I mean, I think they've heard that. That's what they're looking at. But I guess the question is like they may consider other places. But if you're talking about places where you want to list, in terms of most people will target the US, liquidity in other places, in terms of like investor interest, it's not enough to justify like you want to get the most bang for your buck where you register. So I don't know. I haven't actually heard it. I mean, that's just my speculation on my part. It is also like, you know, your point around the contradictions of the SEC. Like they let Coinbase list as a stock, right? Files as S1s and everything. But on the other hand, after they've listed, they sue Coinbase for offering earn and list insecurities. So they allowing them to go and become a publicly traded company, but they're also saying, wait a second, you've listed securities, now we're going to sue you. So that's pretty crazy.
To a degree, it's like it should be seen as an admission of guilt to some degree. It's like, I mean, you allowed this company to go public, so somebody didn't do their due diligence, right?
I mean,
On Telegram, I'll just quickly say that I think if they were to try to list in the US, I don't think they'd be approved, and I actually don't think it's so much to do with Toncoin, more with the fact that I think a lot of governments, not just in the US, but around the world, want control of social media. And of course, those of you who use Telegram know that like Telegram, their whole thing has been like, we don't want any government to kind of like control us, and we want to be dedicated to free speech. So it's kind of like, you know, if like Twitter or X was to like try and list publicly, I don't think they would have a pretty, well, maybe they would pull it off, but I think it would be a harder time, not necessarily because there's any securities or anything like this, but purely because it's like, it's free speech, and as governments we don't like that, and we don't want to support that.
And also the fact is, it's obviously because it's obviously Russian sanctions right now. Obviously, you know, there's questions. Oh, it's got Russian, you know, originally founded by, and it's the Russian backing and all that kind of stuff. Could they potentially be, you know, would the sanctions complicate that? But it is interesting. I think to his second part of his question, any hot narrative, when it's an L1, right? So, you know, is it a payments? Is it, you know, just building like infrastructure on top of it? Like they want to integrate it within Telegram to be able to be like a super app. Do you guys just think it's a beta play on the stock?
No. So I think one of the strengths that Telegram is going to try and play into is the same sort of like peer-to-peer micropayments, right? So I mean, Telegram's got bots going on it. It's going to be pretty easy to build onto. I hear it's a pretty like efficient network as well. So I think building's going to be quite easy, and it'll be a great place for like influencers and people to kind of interact with their fans as well. Because as soon as you can start exchanging micropayments for fractions of a penny, it's a bigger play for sure.
I agree with Taylor. I was going to say, I think the biggest killer use case for Toncoin would be probably something like payments. That would be like the hot narrative. And you guys might have heard that I think also Telegram or Toncoin recently introduced like a KYC type thing solution, which, you know, if you're talking about doing payments, you need to do some minimal form of kind of like KYC. And it's going to be very interesting actually to see that you'll have, you know, potentially like Solana emerging like from the US, let's say like Global North, whatever, like as a payment solution, and then Toncoin emerging as a competitor, and like people are going to realize like, oh my God, like that is like, you're like, why is Toncoin, like why is it so, you know, why has it gone up so much, like why is the market cap so large? That there is actually positioning, and we, in our review on the Coin Bureau Club, like there's even a little bit of, you know, kind of like alpha in there about how it does actually look like Toncoin is being positioned as like an alternative payments, like with Tether and whatever. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's what the announcement. I mean, at the time of shooting, there's a big announcement coming
at Token 24/9
from Telegram and Tether, and I would suspect that it's going to be something related to payments or something along these lines, and it's going to be like, wow, and everyone's going to be like, wee.
100%. They basically, and they've also done other stuff. Like now, I think they also allow, and they want to use Toncoin to be able to buy ads. You have to pay to pay in Toncoin, and then also they're doing this creator sharing kind of thing, which is also going to create demand and interest for it, like these micropayments for friends. And you know, there's channels over 1,000 subscribers can earn some of that, and they can get half of the earnings. So, anyways, I think there's a lot going on with Ton. I think that generally it's like one of these things where you see something pumping. Sometimes you think to yourself, maybe it could just be like, oh, it's just popping off because everyone's on a hot narrative. It's a beta play, but sometimes there's a lot of work going on beneath. And when you dive down and dig into it, sometimes you know there is a lot going on. So that's why it's important not to just dismiss something like, oh my God, it's there. Why is it there? You have to actually try and like dig into it, because there's a lot of information out there about what they're building and stuff when you actually dive into it. And it's also definitely watch an interview with Pavel, with Tucker Carlson. It's actually really fascinating how he's managed to build a company like that. No HR department. No, I mean, no HR department, and he recruits all his engineers from a jobs board.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, wow.
So, cool. On to the next question. And this is from ThomasHills.th. And he's asking, what are your predictions on the price action coming from Hong Kong ETFs and the timing?
Ooh.
Predictions, man, those are always tough and dangerous.
Yeah,
I think it's a lot more hype than I think we're going to see it reflected in Bitcoin's price action. So I think Bitcoin's done so well after the spot Bitcoin ETF in the US, right? And I don't really know how many Chinese investors are going to actually have access to the Hong Kong stock market as well. So you can't really translate it into, the entire population of China will now be able to invest in Bitcoin spot ETF. I'm like, that's not going to be the case. Yeah. So what kind of inflows is going to have? I mean, I'm not an expert in the Asian stock market, so honestly, I don't really know, to be honest. It's going to be significantly less than the impact of the US. Approval of it had, but that's all I've got on that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I'll take a little bit of a different spin on it. I actually think it's contingent on what is happening with like the Chinese economy, which might sound a little bit strange, but like just hear me out. From what I read, and you guys can double check this and feel free to like fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure that the entities that filed for the spot Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs in Hong Kong are affiliated with the Chinese government. I'm pretty sure there was a report.
One of them is. Okay.
So that kind of tells. Well, that's of course like one thing that's interesting. But I think that the kind of only real barrier, I guess, like to the inflows is that of course what the Chinese government doesn't want is like their economy is apparently not doing too well. Whether that's accurate, like no one knows because they have bias on both sides, but. Let's just, for sake of argument, let's say like the Chinese economy is not doing well, and if it starts to pick up and everything's doing fine, then of course especially with the currency, that the currency kind of like stabilizes and starts even like to strengthen a little bit or whatever, then maybe the Chinese government would be a little bit more open and say, you know what, like we can actually allow a little bit of outflows out of here, and you guys will be able to invest. And of course, the thing I think that the Chinese government really likes, same like the U.S. government for that matter, is that when you're investing into the ETF, you actually don't have access to the underlying, and that's something they can still seize and control. So it's like if in the worst case scenario, if it like backfires, they don't have to worry. Like they can easily put the genie back in the bottle with the ETFs. And I do think that there's about the timing, I guess I could say like when the Chinese economy starts to recover, when the PBOC is not paranoid about like the value of the yuan like tanking, then maybe they'll say like, you know what, like some for wealthy investors out of China, you are now allowed to invest into these ETFs in Hong Kong. As to when that will be, I don't know. I've heard a lot of chatter about like first the Fed has to move and like all these other central banks have to cut first, and then China can follow suit without weakening the yuan. But we'll see. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good point for sure to both of you. I think that the question around, so there isn't easy free flow and access for mainland investors to get into Hong Kong. They have to use a system called Stock Connect, which is a connection between the Shanghai Stock Exchange and Hong Kong. And this is permission. Like obviously you have to apply. In China, the Chinese government allows you or not, right? Yeah. So there was like, there were estimates, very wide estimates in terms of how much flow could come in, right? So Matrix Port said, the Stock Connect could allow at least $25 billion of Chinese investors. They want to diversify away from the property market. This is a permission way for them to do it. The government would maybe allow it. Maybe it could come in, and this could actually be a push for ETFs, push for demand for Bitcoin. Then the Bloomberg analyst came out and said, actually, it's probably going to be a bit of a flop. Only like 500 million we expect. So at the end of the day, it really does come down to what the Chinese government will allow, right? In terms of like how will they allow a lot of investors to actually get access through Stock Connect. They're not happy with crypto, obviously, because it is a way for them to subvert the yuan and basically capital controls. But like you said, if it's permissioned, right, they can control the people that are buying in, and they can control the flows, right? And it's basically a diversification for the people in China who want to invest. They are crypto crazy. So at the end of the day, it will just come down to, I think, how much Chinese government will allow to buy in, and the timing. I think that They've been approved, and then they're due to start trading the end of this month. So, and there's already been adverts around Hong Kong for it. So, we'll see. But to your point, I don't think it's going to be anywhere near the amount of demand that the US has seen for these kind of assets, and because also, it's just not going to. The most significant thing I think from these, as compared to the US, is the type of redemption model they use.
Oh, interesting.
So this is going to be the in-kind redemption.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
Which is
Okay.
I think something else sort of think about this as well, talking to what you guys said, is I am quite surprised as well that if China is going to allow investors exposure to Bitcoin, because their real estate industry is in a lot of trouble right now, both commercial and just home ownerships, right? They've got these massive ghost cities. So, I would be thinking that their government would want to do everything in their power to kind of fix their crumbling real estate industry, right? And not give people an alternative asset to invest in, because, they should want to keep that money on their own soil, right? And their own infrastructure. But, sometimes you got to give the people what they want as well. And if that's crypto.
Yeah, I mean, but the question on the real estate, I guess, is kind of like, do you think the government, the Chinese government, this is maybe now we're diverging into the property discussion in China, but do you think that part of the issues in the Chinese property market is because of rampant speculation? In terms of like people just like, spending their life savings on a property, putting down payments, massive leverage. And that's not really driven by fundamental demand for housing, but more just people having an opportunity to go and YOLO into because they can't invest in crypto. They can't necessarily easily get access to stock, and they're just going to go, and everyone wants to go and get in on property. So they go massively leverage in property. And that creates obviously a massive debt problem.
What's interesting though is, I actually listened to a very in-depth podcast about this not long ago. And what's interesting is apparently a lot of the buys in China, like of all these properties, was actually, the leverage is actually not from the individual. Like a lot of them were able to like source money from like their friends, family, and whatever to buy the property. The leverage is all actually in the companies, because what happened is, of course, the company says like, give us your money, and then we're gonna basically like go and build this thing. And then they took all this money and they never built it, and then they went under. So that's kind of like the thing.
Evergrande.
So, yeah. So I'm not too worried about the leverage thing, but like one thing that's really interesting, I guess, and maybe it's a little bit off the topic of what you just mentioned, is like, of course, everyone's wondering like, why is gold rallying? Why is gold rallying? Of course, there's like geopolitical risk in there. But what's really fascinating is apparently it seems that a lot of the buying is actually coming from China, because the question is like for store of value, right? Like it was like property was the main thing. But when property is like no longer the store of value, it's like, where the hell do I put my money? And some of you guys might have seen a headline. I forget if it was in Shanghai or in Hong Kong.
The ETF basically.
The gold ETF was stopped or something because it was like depegging to the upside or something.
30% premium to the upside.
There you go.
Yeah, they had to.
so that kind of tells you that there is a search for store of value, and it'll be interesting to see like if we've been thinking like store value, like Bitcoin, like, and that doesn't really resonate, I would say, like with people who are like in Western countries. Yeah. But it's possible that in these Eastern countries that they actually do see Bitcoin as a store of value for whatever reason, and maybe you'll see like the inflows could surprise. I think there's a bigger chance that the inflows will surprise than they don't. But the only question is when, right? Yeah. Like initial opening, like you said, and it could be like nothing. And if the CCP allows for the opening, then you actually could see like billions of inflows.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
I was trapped inside a cage made out of the daily grind.
I was so unfulfilled. I felt like a blank sheet of A4 paper.
Something was missing from my life, but I didn't know what.
But then I found what I'd been missing.
The Coin Bureau deals page was the answer to my prayers.
It had everything I needed to make me complete.
Exchange sign-up bonuses of up to $60,000.
The biggest discounts on the best hardware wallets.
Trading fee discounts of up to 60% on the best crypto exchanges.
Exclusive altcoin alpha.
Thank you, Coin Bureau, for bringing me back to life.
Okay, cool. And our next question is from Pius Morrison.
Nice name.
Nice name, Pius. Pius, very pious of you. And he's asking, and this is a really important one, guys, so get ready. Is it possible to turn $1,000 into 30K in crypto?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Is it difficult? Yes. Is it likely? Probably not. I will say I've personally known a few people who have done similar plays and done very well. I'm not one of them, unfortunately. I'm a little too conservative. But I think the most consistent ways I've seen people actually pull this strategy off isn't just by buying and holding, it's actively selling out of one and getting into another. So I actually personally know one guy who will get into small cap plays, and he says it's the easiest money to make ever. He's like, you just triple your money and get out. He's like, you don't hold it you don't look for that 10x, 100x. He's like, you triple your money, get out, recycle into the next one, do the same thing. And because, most degens are really looking for those home run hits, right? So if you're a little more conservative about it, this isn't financial advice, of course. But yeah, he's just like, every time you triple, you get out and you put it in the next thing. And he's done exceptionally well. And I recently did a 3-part post in our Discords on ways that you can basically diversify without having to spend a whole lot of extra time on it. And one of the methods that I mentioned that I did use when I first got into crypto trading was I got into like a trading group of people that I trusted, I knew quite well, and we all actually focused on a different niche because there are too many tokens to watch them all, right? So for me, there was actually a group of 10 of us, and everybody was like, okay, you're on layer 1s. I mean, this was before layer 2s were even a thing. So it was like, you're layer 1s, you're, the one meme coin that existed. Somebody else was only doing swing trades on like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And then we had one guy that was just monitoring the pump and dump schemes because we just wanted to get out of anything that was about to be a pump and dump. That was a big thing, going back to Telegram. But yeah, so basically what we did is we just leveraged resources and we all just funneled trades back into a group amongst ourselves. And I mean, we didn't turn, what was it, $1,000 into 30K, but we did all right that year.
That's a good strategy for sure. I mean, because exactly, it's like you need to be a specialist, right? You can't be trying to chase every single every single trade, every single pump, because you'll get dumped on. And it's also true. Like, it's a lot easier to make a 3 to 4x in one, and then the next, than to go and do a 30x in just one, or even, and that's what most crypto traders focus on. Like, I want this coin that's going to 30 to 100x.
Yeah.
But
and then they'll hodl it back to zero as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But by the way, Taylor mentioned obviously our Discord. You can go and read his post there if you're a Coin Bureau Club subscriber. If you're not, we'll leave it linked to below as well. This is where you can also get all this information because our researchers have different specialities as well and the focuses. And you can get Taylor's perspective on what's important to pop off in the L1 space. And then you can get Kevin, who always looks into some of these L2s and stuff. So yeah, we'll leave a link to that below.
Kevin's been on fire with his like airdrops and stuff. I've been loving his posts. So yeah, it's great alpha in there for sure.
Yeah, but I would say I would say it is possible because I've not to say that I've done the same in the past, but I kind of have a couple times. So it is possible, but I think it is becoming a little bit more difficult, and it's going to get harder also as the kind of like the crypto bull market progresses because most of the gains have already been made. Like if you look at a lot of these like small caps, a lot of them are already up like 10, 20x. So is it possible? Yes. Is it something that you should try doing is another question, right? Like if you have because at this point you really have to have like a higher risk tolerance. You have to be really willing to like go and dig deeper. I will say that like on this Coin Bureau Club, like chill again, is that we do actually try to look for these types of cryptos that you can actually have, 30, 100x return potential. Like obviously no guarantees there. But is it possible? Yes. In terms of how to do it, I mean, I can give you guys a couple spoilers. It's pretty straightforward. You just look for, because even for myself, like I was asking the cryptos that went up, like 50, 100x in the last cycle. I even had one go up 200x. It's like, how did I even pick that, right? Like, how did I find it? And the answer is literally just to find something that average retail investors could understand, has a low price tag, low market cap, is also accessible. Like it needs to be on an exchange that people can actually buy through. Whether it's like Coinbase or whatever. It depends. Also, like KuCoin, even these larger exchanges, I think is sufficient. But it's accessible, small, like low price tag, small market cap, a narrative that narrative or use case that retail can understand. Like decentralized streaming or like a decentralized Spotify or like something like this.
Like retail focused.
Exactly, yeah. Because if you start like this is one thing that I even have to sometimes like Nick will ask me, he's like, what do you think of this like modular restaking, whatever, and I'm like, but like who's gonna buy that besides like a crypto bro? You know what I mean? Like
exactly. Yeah.
And same thing with many of our Coin Bureau Club members because a lot of people in our community are very like educated about crypto and everything, and they think, what do you think of this very infrastructure, like a RPC, decentralized RPC network? I'm like, I can't think of a single retail. Like my dad's not going to buy that. Maybe ask yourself that. Like, would your brother or dad or whoever that knows nothing about crypto, is that something they would FOMO into? And just on a quick note, like I remember when ADA was hitting its all-time high, my dad, who's never, like he knows nothing about crypto, he's like, what do you think of Cardano? and
that should have been a top signal, bro. That should have been a top signal, man. That should have been like the immediate sell.
But literally just ask yourself, like, which crypto is there that your family member will be like, hey, have you heard of I don't know, like Toncoin or something, right?
So a narrative that's relatively easy to understand, relatively low price, because then people think, because people have this, that's a good point Dan makes, because a lot of retail, they'll think, they don't look at market cap, they look at price.
Yeah.
They think, oh, Dogecoin, like small price. They don't research the supply, how the supply works, and what is the outstanding supply. It's like, oh, it's low price, it's a dog, that's cool, you know. And what's the next dog we're going to jump on, and what's the next like meme animal?
Exactly.
And I think an easy to understand narrative, relatively low price. If not listed on the SEX, at least like a plan and strategy that we're going to be listing soon, and that can be determined by looking at who's backing it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if you see like Coinbase Ventures, KuCoin Ventures, or like OKX, I'm pretty certain like there's going to be a runway to them getting listed easily. Yeah. So its backers is important as well from the early stage stuff.
Well, Nick, you just put a pretty good post up on LinkedIn as well, where you compared the number of coins from previous cycles, and just like the sheer math alone says it's going to be harder to hit those home run plays in this cycle, just because. Where do you start? There's so many new projects and narratives.
Exactly, man. It's so saturated, Yeah. So you need to go down the market cap rankings. You need to go down in real gem hunting. And it is a matter of investing is like life. It's risk versus reward. These kind of 30Xs on a particular coins are doing the strategy. You need to go and focus on like smaller cap plays, which are more risky. But and always try and be focused. That's the thing that you guys, like we both covered. It's like you can't be covering every single narrative in every single ecosystem, and every single because there's just too much. Then you basically just like I love the sentence. It's like he who chases two rabbits catches none. So that's just. It's so true. You need to focus. You need to become a specialist and focus on these ecosystems. And you can literally just focus on a meme coin ecosystem within one L2, and you could literally like crush it. So it's like that you can become a specialist. It's important to become a specialist because then you can focus.
Is that a subtle Foxy hint there? You're like, meme coin ecosystem one L2. Check out Linnea.
Check out Foxy. Because we also need to try and think about the way people are moving away from the hype. We need to move to new animals, man, and new memes. We need to think about memes out here. So. Or if it's not Foxy, it's Bowden. Cool. Okay, so that was that question. Not financial advice, of course, but yes, it's possible, but it's much harder these days. So the next question is from Lassen Norton, and he's asking, how bullish are you on PYTH at 58 cents? I don't know if it's still at 58 cents, but yeah, and SUI at $1. 5x or more possible this bull run?
Oh, I'll talk about the SUI projects.
First of all, do you hold it in your portfolio?
I do hold it in my portfolio, yeah. I wish I had more. But yeah, I think, so the Move programming language, I think is going to be one of the many popular narratives of this cycle for sure, because it's something new. It didn't exist in the last cycle, right? And there are some pretty prominent investors. Like I was recently listening to Raoul Paul talk about Aptos and SUI as being serious ones to watch. And there's already like some pretty interesting looking GameFi projects launching on SUI as well, which is interesting for such a new network. So I think what's really attracted me to SUI and why I do think it could 5x is just it's not only the network itself, but it's the caliber of projects that SUI's already captured their attention, right? So I think that one's going to do really well. PYTH, I'm also bullish on whether or not it can do, a 5x. Anything's possible in this crazy crypto game, right? But yeah, those are both. I mean, the fact that you brought those two up, I think those are two very solid projects for sure.
Solid, yeah.
I honestly think that both will, from this current levels, it wouldn't surprise me at all if both 10x or more. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy until you realize that like Solana. Like we did a review of PYTH on the Coin Bureau Club also, and I would almost like recommend like it's literally worth it to sign up, like even just to see that video, because when you understand the importance of PYTH like in infrastructure, not just in Solana's ecosystem, but in this new emerging crypto ecosystem, because all of these faster chains like SUI and Aptos and whatever, they need a high frequency oracle, and at least according to PYTH, and that chain link is just not fast enough to keep up, and even the cool thing about PYTH is that the data you get is like on request, so you're not constantly you don't have to constantly pay for a feed, which is apparently how Chainlink works now. Of course, that's something they could change, I'm sure, in the future. But with PYTH, it's like you only pay for the data that you need. You don't have to constantly be streaming the data, and I think the like PYTH's role in like this next infrastructure, same thing like with Wormhole. Although I'm a little bit less bullish on Wormhole because I think there's more disruption potential in the bridge space. But with PYTH, when you're dealing with like all these like Jump Crypto and all these Wall Street firms that are that are feeding data through that, I'm sorry, but like you're going to have a really hard time finding a competitor to Pyth, and I think it's going to be a very vicious competitor for Chainlink. And sorry to upset any Link Marines out there.
The Link Marines are going to come for you,
yeah,
bro.
Yeah. and again, I'm sure that Chainlink will have its own way of like, of like competing. But for the time being, like Pyth looks like a very strong competitor. Yeah,
I like that it just already has a proven use case as well, right? I mean, Chainlink has kind of already blazed that trail. And so, there's obvious demand in the space for it. So.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I'm bullish on both projects. I don't hold Pyth. Unfortunately, I sold out of it because I needed liquidity just before the massive rally. So, paper handed that bad boy. But I was forced. I needed liquidity. SUI, I do hold. I'm bullish on SUI. Question on Pyth though, because in May, 21st of May, we've got a massive unlock coming.
Yeah, right.
That's a big unlock.
Right,
the outstanding supply is going to more than double, right? So it's like, currently we have 21.3% of it will be 21% of the 21.3% of the supply will become unlocked, and there's 15% outstanding. So it's a massive unlock. Obviously, the question then is, could this impact on the price? I mean, that's a lot of selling pressure that could come on. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, it'll undoubtedly have some sort of an effect, right? I mean, I guess, so I don't hold PYTH either, but if I did, I would actually just be looking to hold, if there's a run up, if there's a rally up to that date, I would actually just hold and look to sell just before then and buy back after, to be honest. I've done that a few times with like big token unlocks, and more often than not, it's worked out in my favor. Worst case scenario, you just pretty much buy it for the same amount that you sold for.
Yeah, a lot of it, I think it was Token Unlocks had done these guys, great team. Great resource, by the way. Token Unlocks, definitely check them out.
If you're a CoinBear Club subscriber, you'll get a discount on their subscriptions, by the way. So that's another point.
Yeah, and Token Unlocks, we summarized one of their reports once that was analyzing the effects of these unlocks. And from my main takeaway from that report was that it tends to be very like psychological. It's more psychological than like real, where like people, they can see that basically literally what Taylor just said is they can see the unlock is coming, and they literally think like, well, if I'm up like just shortly before, then I'm going to sell. And literally exactly.
Yeah.
And there but to be fair though, there have been some cases. The one that always comes to my mind is Matic, where in one of our earlier reviews, like a couple of years ago, we had I had found that if you look at the price, you can actually see that there actually looks like there is sustained sell pressure like after the fact for a while. And that actually makes sense because in Polygon's case, you guys might remember they allocated $1 billion just for one, you know what I mean? Like all these ecosystem funds, they allocated $1 billion ecosystem fund, to make like the zero knowledge solution. Yeah. And so they actually did probably actually sell all that, all that stuff to capture some of the value. But no hate against Matic or it went I fumbled. That was a 300x that I missed. So I found it at 1 cent and it went up to $3 or whatever, and I sold it 20 cents or something. So
they used. Do you remember when Polygon they bought? This is in 2021. They bought their ZK. They bought a project called Hermes.
Yes, and that was the big.
Exactly.
That was one
so
of the
then they used them.
Yeah.
If they're using the funds to sustain the project, But the question, I think that in terms of the unlocks, it is a concern. You just have to ask yourself, well, firstly, are the guys who've been locked, the VCs, gonna sell?
I'm sure there'll be some selling.
Some may be selling, but some are bullish on it, right? It's a bullish project in terms of the technology behind it and what it's going to be doing for the Oracle space in terms of bringing on-chain feeds, off-chain feeds on-chain, in terms of how fast it is, how performant it is, especially with all these really fast alt ones that are coming up. But in terms of, so there's potential selling, but some of them may just want to hodl, right? Because they're in VCs, they care about the longer term. It's okay, I don't want to necessarily need the liquidity right now. It all depends on whether they need the liquidity. Yeah. And then there's also the question around, I know I asked you about this, it's are we going to start seeing the change in tokenomics for Pyth improvement proposals that's going to bring in a demand, on-chain demand utility for Pyth?
I think that's possible, yeah. And the one thing I'll quickly add, Nick, is that you also have to remember, because something you had mentioned before, Fire Dancer. You have to keep this in the context that Fire Dancer is expected to be released sometime this summer. I think the original schedule is to be released somewhere halfway into the year. So it's possible that, even if there is a Pyth network unlock and there's a little bit of selling or whatever, around that time, you could simultaneously get the Fire Dancer announcement. And then everyone who just out of fear, sold out their Pyth, all of a sudden it starts rallying because Fire Dancer is in. And of course, Fire Dancer makes everything on Solana faster. That means more, it's going to mean more demand.
Do you know it's building Fire Dancer?
The same guys.
Jump Crypto. Jump is obviously a big backup.
Yeah, exactly.
One question on SUI though, guys, because you mentioned it as well. So they both obviously move-based languages. They both come out of Libra. There's a lot of excitement for both of us in the L1 narrative, very fast and performant. SUI versus Aptos. Why? I'm more bullish on SUI, and I can explain later. But I'm curious. Do you hold Aptos?
I don't hold Aptos. No.
So why? What do you think about SUI versus Aptos?
I think it's pretty clear, to be honest, that I think SUI is more popular and like getting more traction. In some sense, I'm not that surprised because even between Aptos and SUI, and it's been a while, honestly, since I've done like a deep dive into both of these projects. But from what I remember, is like Aptos definitely felt like a little bit more, because I always try and like class things into like these onshore entities like Coinbase and Circle, and then like this offshore entities like Binance and Tether and these guys, right? And of course, there's always some overlap, right? There's a lot of cross investing and what have you. But what's really fascinating about SUI is like, in my opinion, it looks like they're very clearly like going like hard into like the offshore thing, because you guys heard there was a recent announcement they had partnership. I forget it was Tencent or one of these big. It was a gaming arm of one of these really big Chinese companies.
Was it Tencent? Yeah.
But anyway, like and so that alone tells me is like it's very clear which direction SUI is trying to push. And for Aptos, it's like it's not clear. It seems like they're more like in the camp, because the interesting thing about Aptos is that Anatoly has mentioned many times that he is nervous about Aptos. But the thing is that he said it specifically because of the move language, and of course it's something that SUI has also. But the fact that Anatoly is concerned about Aptos tells me that he sees them more as like a competitor on their turf, if that makes any sense. Whereas like SUI seems to be kind of going off and like, focusing more on like, we're going to partner with all these like Asian companies and whatever, and work on gaming. And in that sense, SUI could be a huge kind of like competitor. Anyway, I think though overall SUI seems to have the edge, because I think Aptos is having a hard time like figuring out like what's their angle going to be. And if they try and do something that is like in Solana's camp, they're going to face extreme competition from Solana. And SUI's already like run off. It's kind of like, you can think of it literally as like a board game of sorts, where like all the everyone starts and everyone's thinking like I need to take as much territory as I can. And SUI seems to be like running out and taking everything. Solana's already taken a bunch of stuff, and Aptos sitting there like what do I take?
They're getting caught in the headlights, a deer in the headlights. You can't be doing that. It's interesting. And actually, we, if you're a Coin Bureau, if you remember the Coin Bureau Discord, again, link down below, we had the head of one of the senior people at SUI on an AMA like 2-3 weeks ago. And actually I think the co-founder of SUI was actually the guy who developed Move.
Yes.
Right, so the actual language when he was working at the one that's been used for both of them. And actually, from a tech perspective, people think, they're the same project in terms of like, the same underlying architecture. Not so much. The Move language in terms of on SUI side is a lot easier and a lot more performant than the one on Aptos side. And also, in terms of Aptos, I think that their release of their token kind of like it didn't go too well. And and they had issues there. And I think that SUI's captured the narrative. There's a lot of, and we've got guys like developers within the Coin Bureau Club Discord, like smart developers, and these guys are like they say SUI is like the easiest blockchain, one of the easiest blockchains to build on. Like it's got a lot of tooling, and they've also got like a lot of incentives for developers to come there. These kind of quests, right? So it's basically bringing demand for builders to come there, and obviously that drives TVL, that drives DApp development. So I'm bullish on SUI. That's why I hold it.
I think just to build on what Dan said, like SUI just they moved quicker, right? They got that real first mover kind of advantage over Aptos, because Aptos kind of just sat. They released their token and they didn't really do anything. And I got to chat with the SUI team as well, actually, and I was really impressed. Jumped on a call with them, and I heard a bit about how they're positioning themselves with marketing and why they're going after the projects they're going after. And I think they just nailed it. They hit the right sectors, the right projects, and Aptos has just kind of been sitting there like a pet rock.
One more thing I'll mention about Aptos is when we reviewed it, and I remember doing the research for that video, the one thing that kind of stuck out to me is I definitely got the feeling, and this was my concern with SUI as well, but it's been proven wrong, is that, because both projects have their roots in Libra, and think of how many billions of dollars of resources that Facebook had allocated, right? And I definitely get the sense that, at least from when I was doing the research for Aptos, I got the sense that they were kind of like, that they had like taken what was left and they had like gone to build their own crypto project, but they're missing kind of like the same financial support, the same, I don't know how to explain it. It's like they're just missing the necessary, like they had all the tools that they needed when they were building as Libra, but then after splitting off and starting their own thing, they seem to be like a little bit, not like shorthanded. Whereas in SUI's case, it seems like they're still powering strong, and I think it's as a consequence mainly of this dude who made the move language. So that's probably why. Anyway, let's move on to the...
So that was time to go to the next question. We just like live for altcoins, man. Okay, this is the next question. This is probably one of the most important, because this is where we get to show up and coming projects we're watching. And this is from Christopher Loberg, 94, and he's asking, what up-and-coming projects are you most excited about?
Oh man, we could go all day on this one.
Yeah.
I'm really big, for anybody in our Discord and our Coin Bureau club, I'm really big on DePIN, and not just because it's a flash in the pan narrative like we often get. Like, DePIN's actually been around for a long time. It just didn't have the fancy term DePIN. There's been DePIN projects building since like 2017. So Peak is one that I'm really interested in as well. Yeah, it just because I love that they're bridging the real and the digital worlds together, right? And I mean, there's real use cases, there's real opportunities for people to actually, get their digital footprint out there and actually build these projects that kind of benefit everybody. So if I had to just pick one project that's small that isn't really very well known yet, for me it'd be Peak.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. For me, I was just checking. I wanted to quickly check on my phone to make sure they haven't released a token yet, because I don't want to like accidentally be like pumping something. But one, and I'm going to go really niche on you guys, and it's one that I'm very interested in. I haven't done too much digging into it yet, to be honest. But I guess I'll do a very quick story that I was following this one dude on Twitter who's very big he was very passionate about Algorand. There's of course there's a lot of guys who are big on Algorand. And those of you who are like big fans of Algorand may know that there was a little bit of controversy around the I don't know, the CEO of the foundation, I think, where like people don't really like her for whatever reason. I don't understand the full details of it.
She's the one who had a Twitter account hacked 5 times.
Yeah. But the thing that's really interesting is that, of course, even in Algorand, like I think they kind of messed up the I think it's safe to say I think algo holders will agree that they messed up the tokenomics. A lot of sell pressure from the foundation, all this stuff. And we even in one of our reviews like mentioned that like the former CEO of the foundation was like, and we're going to basically like finish selling all the stuff in the market.
Accelerated vesting.
This accelerated vesting, and it's going to be good, and it's like, are you crazy? Anyway, what's really interesting, so there's a crypto project called Voy Network, and to my understanding, it is basically it's a community run fork of Algorand, where they're basically like, we're not happy with how this crypto project is going. And we want with an I, Voy with an I. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the one.
It's a fork of Algorand.
It's a fork. I don't know if it's a pure fork or maybe they did some adjustment or whatever. But it sounds like these guys are really trying to like restart Algorand, or not restart, but they want to make Algorand like kind of like the way that everyone envisioned it that it would be. And I know that they're doing testnets now. So if any of you guys are like really big on like if you're actually serious about like getting some allocation, then you could probably like run like a node or whatever. The dudes are super responsive on Twitter. And it's a crypto project I've had my eye on. I haven't gone like super in depth, so please like do your own research. But it's probably one that at some point I'm hoping we'll cover for our Coin Bureau Club subscribers. So if you don't have the time or effort to do the research, you can, we'll do it for you.
Well, you go and vote. You know how these projects are chosen.
Exactly.
You got to go and vote.
You got to vote.
If you're a member, that's when you can vote, right? So
But Voy is definitely one to watch if you're, especially in Algorand. I think that's one that's just completely off the radar. No one has even heard. And again, the only reason I know about it is because I was following this dude who was just like a huge Algorand fan, and he was really upset with what was happening with the foundation. He said, this other project, Voy Network, like we're trying to basically do it the right way. And of course, anyone feel free to correct me, but that's one that I have on my radar.
I think it sounds exciting because obviously the Algorand tech must have been amazing because I remember Sylvia McCulley, because the guy literally like he was like one of these.
He started $0 proofs, I think.
Exactly, and he's an MIT professor on this stuff, and the tech must be amazing. It's just like the question around the foundation, the sun, and all that kind of stuff.
I was really bullish on Algorand back in the day. Like the tech stack was just incredible on it.
Even me at some point, to be honest, I was very interested in Algorand because the technology is actually very good. It is very good.
But but unfortunately, the fans seem to think we're massive algo bears and massive like.
It's just the tokenomics are bad. That's it. Like. Anyway.
Tokenomics is it, man. Sometimes if you don't have good tokenomics, it can make or break a project. In terms of projects, I'm looking excitingly up and coming. I'll be quick. I've talked about this before. It just seems to be going all over the space right now. It's Chain. They haven't even launched a token yet. They recently they raised $1.5 billion valuation, 100 million there, all over a token 2049. It's also built within the Cosmos ecosystem. Like they got this new proof of liquidity consensus mechanism. Super smart guys behind it. The story behind it as well has been emanated from a meme. So it's a really exciting project to take a look into. And then another project, and this comes back to the discussion we just had about SUI and avatars. around Move and the preeminence of Move as a programming language is Movement Labs. Coinbase is invested in it as well. They're basically a network of modular-based, Move-based dApps and projects that's built on separate blockchains, and it fits into this modular narrative as well with Celestia and Cosmos and everything. So they could be coming, towards a mainnet soon. They've already got two different types of technology. M1 and M2. M1 is a blockchain that's already very highly performant, and M2 is an EVM compatible, built on as an EVM layer 2. So yeah, it's a very exciting project. It's coming soon, and those are my two picks, up and coming. Both don't have a token yet, so keep an eye out for that. In terms of Berachain, there's speculation. Could there be some sort of an airdrop? But they haven't announced it, so people are like speculatively using it and farming it.
Interesting.
With regards to Move, there's no known sort of point system, but yeah. Okay, now the final question, and this is also a very important question, right? The most important question of them all. Rob Threepwood is asking, how can I tell my mom not to panic sell?
I love this question. I really hope all your guys' mothers are into crypto. Neither of my parents are, so I don't actually have this problem. Okay, cool. But I do have to laugh because my mom says, you work for the Bitcoin, right? The Bitcoin, that's the company you work for. And then my dad will go, I just don't understand the Bitcoin thing. To him, the whole sector is the Bitcoin thing. But man, honestly, I think that one of my favorite things one of the favorite facts I'll always hit Bitcoin skeptics with is nobody in history has ever held Bitcoin for 4 years and has lost money on it. So anybody who wants to sell quick, if it's Bitcoin, you just hit them with that fun fact, like, look, you just hold it for 4 years, chances are pretty good. And the other thing as well, like everybody, I'll feel the FOMO and want to sell a coin when it's crashing as well. But I always think it's really, I love kind of just asking yourself the set of questions, like, why did I invest in the first place? Like, have the fundamentals changed? Has the tech changed? Have the founders changed? That is a big one for me, actually, is as soon as there's the synergies broken between project founders, I typically pull the chute and get out of a project as well. But regardless of what the price is doing, if my original conviction still stands, I'll typically just hold.
For this one,
does your mom hold crypto?
No, but like both of my parents are interested, and they're just wondering, like, when's the good time to get in? And of course, me as the in-house crypto expert, very like just patiently being like, I'm not gonna let them buy when everything's overheated, and then they get wrecked. But or like they're not going to be able to handle that. Like they buy and then it's like a 30% drawdown, and then you're going to be getting the same question that your parents are panicking. But honestly, I think that the biggest thing about crypto is it's all psychological, basically. Is that if your mom is seriously like considering panic selling, then she probably is like overexposed. Like she's probably invested too much. And like, of course, it depends on the person. For some people, it's like, I invested $100 and it's, it's down, and I'm like, I'm gonna like the world is over. But I mean, for some people, to be honest, to be fair, that is a lot of money for some people in some contexts. But yeah, if your mom is panic selling, that you probably told her to buy too much,
or you gave her bad advice and she bought dog with hat.
Yeah,
or she bought the wrong thing. Panic sell, but like, okay, it's a panic like selling when it's crashing. Okay, but they could have been the question once it's rallying and they want to take profits.
Oh, I mean, I don't think there's anyone when you see it going up, you think it's going to keep going up. But that's the thing, is like crypto is very psychological. So if you if you can't sleep at night because you're thinking that you need to invest, then you can say that you're underallocated. If you can't sleep at night because you're worried about how much it's going to fluctuate, then you've invested too much. Yeah, exactly. And this is like a very you have to, because the goal in crypto, you need to keep your mind. You screw up when you get emotional. And so whatever allocation, however you need to structure your portfolio, is like just structure it in a way that makes you the least emotional. So then that way, so you can literally not even think about it all the time. And thankfully, like for me, like the only thing for me is I feel a little bit of FOMO, but there's nothing I can do about that. Like I'm waiting. You have to wait patiently for the dip and get your entry. But for me, like I sleep fine. Like I don't think really that much about my portfolio. I don't even check it that frequently because I'm happy with the allocation that I have. And that's, so that's basically it. So if your mom is thinking of panic selling, then she's probably overexposed, and you should probably reduce that so she doesn't feel that way, and that'll make her a better investor, basically.
There we go. So psychology first.
Exactly.
Psychology first. Get in the right mindset. You need to be in the game for investing. You need to make sure your mom's they've got pep talk like how you got to invest. You need to talk about risk management. So you're going to do risk management session with Dan. You're going to do some risk management 101 with crypto. This is how you fight your urges to basically panic sell to paper hand. Basically for me, so my mom, I actually give her crypto, like I've sent her crypto sometimes, and like I was like, don't sell this for another 5 years or whatnot. And I tell her to zoom, when in doubt, zoom out if she's worrying about this kind of stuff. But I think she also kind of like sort of knows is like, if I sell this, he's going to stop. Like, he told me explicitly not to sell. So, yeah, I think it's just serendipity in a way. Serendipity in a way. She's like, okay, well, it's cool.
The golden handcuffs.
Exactly. You know. So there we go. Talk about it. Cool, guys. This has been a really crazy Q&A. Thanks again for coming on. I mean, we went through. I mean, we went for even less questions, but we covered so much ground in terms of lots of exciting stuff. And you know, definitely, you know, hopefully you can come through to Dubai in better circumstances without the rain and all the better circumstances again, and we can do this again. Get your perspectives and all the crazy stuff going, popping off, and deep dives and alpha with regards to our hot altcoin picks. But thanks again, guys, for coming on. Hopefully you guys are able to get out without any sort of, well, Taylor, you unfortunately.
I'm going to be here for a while. All the flights got cancelled, so sticking around.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it's, maybe we can see if we can put our money into the Coin Bureau, like look at a private jet ship, private jet ship you out, you know, bull market vibes. Cool, guys. Have a great week further, and we'll speak soon. Cheers.
Cheers.